This is Steve.
Hi.
We're engaged. It's my fiance.
Yep.
I wanted to document the story of the proposal, which I was completely oblivious for from the beginning until the very moment. So that's why you're here, because you have to tell it. So our first date was almost a year ago, on April 11th. Halfway through dinner, for no reason. You didn't do anything. No, nothing happened.
Well, I mean, I was very charming.
Of course.
And witty.
Aside from that, there was no instance that made me feel this way, but suddenly halfway through dinner I just had this overwhelming feeling that I would marry him. I never had a feeling like that before. It was very strong. And so I just I turned my head away because my face felt like it was reading shock, and I didn't want him to catch on or ask me why he didn't. So I just kind of processed it for a minute and then went on with the date, and throughout our relationship I just kind of held on to that and wondered if it would be true, and it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, since then we never really talked marriage. It would kind of come up now and then, more of me just being like, do you see marriage? Rather than, when are we getting married? Or how do you want to get married? None of that.
I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to propose and get married. I think I knew back in like October, when we went on our trip to to New England. During that trip it kind of came up, am I going to be ready? Is it going anywhere? And at that point I think I had a pretty good idea that I was going to propose and that we were going to get married. But because I wanted this all to be a surprise, I kind of downplayed, anytime this conversation came up, I really downplayed my feelings because I did not want her to suspect that I was going to propose, and that, anytime we went out, she was waiting for me to pop the question and everything. So I had a pretty good idea then, and then I think by Christmas, I had pretty much decided that, yeah, this was going to happen. But again, the topic came up a couple of times, but I kept downplaying it. Even though I knew I was ready and that I was planning it, I kept downplaying it, pretending like, no, I don't know, maybe, eventually, sure, maybe.
It was very rude.
She got very mad at me one time.
Well, yeah. All of these conversations, as far as I knew, he just didn't want to, wasn't ready, would maybe be eventually. So I just kind of went with it. Like I said, I knew from the first date. So it was still a matter of me feeling ready. Like I still had to get there myself, just because it is a big decision, but I knew.
So when I did finally come to a decision that I was going to propose, it was like early January, and I had decided that by the end of January I was going to propose. And so I started looking at rings, I started getting everything ready. Started the first steps of getting everything ready. And at the time I was living at my brother's house, and he called me one day and he said, hey, guess what, I'm selling the house. And so this completely threw a wrench in my plans. I was like, well, I still want to go forward with this because I don't want to keep making her wait. I know she's kind of getting antsy to find out where I am, and I can't keep lying to her. But I was getting really, really stressed because I was starting to pack up the house and get everything ready and try and figure out where I'm moving to, while also planning how to propose and find a ring and get all that information settled. And so I finally just decided I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna have to push it back, unfortunately. A couple weeks after that, we had a conversation again about where I was, if I was ready or not.
Sorry.
And at that point I was like, I am obviously ready. I know it, she doesn't, but I am ready. Like, I am ready to do this. And that night I was like, I have to talk to her dad about this. I still wanted to do it the old-fashioned way and get his permission and everything. His car was somewhere else. I had to drive him to pick up his car. And so I figured, this is the best chance I'm gonna get. We're alone together in the car, we got 10-15 minutes, like, this is the perfect opportunity. And so we just pulled up next to his truck, and he was about ready to get out of the car, and I said, hey, I have to ask you a question. And he looked at me and he goes, uh-oh. I said, I am planning on proposing to Gentry, and I just want to make sure that I have your permission. He's like, whoa. He was not expecting it. And so we talked a little bit about it. He was very excited, very happy that I was going to be part of the family. And so from then on, I was like, okay, now I got to start planning it. At that point, I had moved, I found a new place. So I was like, okay, all that's taken care of. I'm getting settled in and unpacking, but that's not that big a deal. And so I was like, okay, now the planning begins. And so I started looking at rings and everything. I'd decided a few weeks earlier that I wanted to go to the salt flats because if the conditions are perfect, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. So I was keeping an eye on the weather. So I knew where I wanted to do it and how I wanted to do it, and I knew it had to be a secret. I just had to find a ring. And there were a couple other little details I was trying to sort out, like, do I want to have other people there? Do I want to do like a party brunch celebration thing afterwards? And I decided against all that because the most special moments we've had together, it's just been the two of us. And so I really wanted it to be another experience where it's just the two of us. So I reached out to one of her friends on Instagram to try and find her ring size. I didn't know it. I kind of had an idea, but I wanted to make sure that everything was perfect, so I didn't want to get a ring that was, too big or too small. And I thought about, should I get a fake ring to propose with, and then we go buy the ring, together. And I felt like that was kind of a cop-out for me. I'm not, criticizing anyone that's done that, but in our relationship, I felt like it would be more meaningful, and it would show that I really put forth the effort and the time and the energy if I picked a ring that I knew she would really like. So I reached out to her friend on Instagram to ask her ring size, and I said, you have to do it discreetly. This is a secret so far. This cannot get blown. So she messaged Gentry, and very discreetly found her ring size.
She did such a good job too. I had no idea. I have these gold rings that I wear every day, and she told me that she was doing a gift swap at work. And the girl who she had was very similar to me, petite, and also had similar style. So she thought the rings I have would be a good gift. And I thought, oh yeah, that's great. Here are the links. Here's my size. Have fun. And I didn't think anything of it until the day before he proposed. As I drove up to see him, it popped into my head, and this is weeks later that it popped into my head, and I thought, oh, that would be a really clever way to get my ring size if he were proposing, but he's not ready, so that's not happening.
Well.
Little did I know that was exactly what happened.
Yep, so now I had the ring size, I had her dad's permission, I had the location where I wanted to propose, so now I had to find a ring. So I started looking at all the local jewelry stores, kind of the big brand stores, K's and Jared's and all that stuff, and I started looking on Etsy as well. Now, I had found her Pinterest board, and she had pinned like 3 rings.
I'm not like a big wedding pinner.
No, and I kept like trying to decide if I wanted to leave hints so that maybe she would start pinning more rings, so I had a better idea of what to look for. So I started looking at all these sites, and I had a few picked out. Now we have pretty similar tastes, so I kind of had an idea like, well, if I think it's really gonna look good, I'm pretty sure she'll think it looks good too. So I kind of went through and I had found maybe 6 or 7 rings. I knew it had to be conflict free. I wanted a vintage kind of style. I knew she did not want, the big old rock on a ring. I wanted something that was a little more unique. And so I found several, and I started messaging both the friend who helped me find her ring size as well as another one of her very close friends. And I kind of sent the images over, and I said, okay, this is what I've kind of narrowed it down to. What do you think? They were able to help me narrow it down to the one that I did end up buying. So now I had everything. I had everything I needed. Now it's just kind of waiting for the ring to get here. And a week goes by, and I am driving down to Gentry's, and I get an email saying, hey, the ring is here. You can pick it up whenever you want. And it's the Friday right before we're leaving for Vernal.
We're leaving the next morning.
Yeah, we're leaving Saturday morning. But at that point I was like, I'm already way down here, I don't want to turn around and drive the 45 minutes back to the store to get it. I've got everything figured out for the next weekend, so I'll just do it then. And it turned out that while we were down, actually in Flaming Gorge, we found this cute little cabin, and we very spontaneously decided to spend another night in this cabin, and we were literally the only ones there. And I kept kicking myself So it's like, if I had gone to pick up the ring, this would be the perfect time to do it. It would even be more of a surprise because it was this spontaneous decision to stay. There's no way she would be expecting it now. Unfortunately, I did not have the ring with me. And that weekend, we had another conversation about whether or not I was ready to get married.
I don't know, I got worried that you would never be ready or get there, and I wanted it so bad. So I cried.
Mm-hmm. And I felt awful. Because here I am, the ring is in the store. I have everything figured out. I have everything planned.
And as far as I know, he's telling me that he'll be ready, but not yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just going off of his word.
And I felt so bad because I was lying to her. She's like, well, are you going to be ready? And I said, I will be. I don't know when, but I promise I will be. And I felt awful. And for a solid 5 or 10 minutes, I had this internal struggle about whether or not I was going to tell her, and completely ruin the surprise. But I knew how upset she was. I was like, is it worth the surprise? Is it worth me ruining her night and making her upset? And potentially the next week, if this really bothers her for the next week. And for 5 or 10 minutes, I sat there and I was so close. I was so close to ruining the secret and just pulling a picture up of the ring on my phone and be like, look, it's sitting in the store. Here's the email. Here's everything. Okay, I'm ready. Trust me. And ultimately decided not to do it because I figured, well, she'll get over it. She'll be okay.
Luckily I did.
Yeah. And so I was able to pick up the ring, a few days later when we got back to...
Well, it's funny because the day that we got back, you looked at me and you said, I think we should go to the Salt Flats this weekend. And I was so tired because we just had 2 busy weekends. And in my mind, I was like, oh, it's my sister's baby shower. We just got home. I'm so tired. But the way you said it felt important. So I said,
yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to make it feel like, oh, I really want to go take pictures at sunrise, and I haven't done it in a while, and the conditions are supposed to be perfect. I'd been checking the weather for the last week. Everything said the conditions were going to be perfect. They weren't. And so I was like, oh yeah, let's go take pictures, trying to be very sneaky about it and not make it feel like anything was out of the ordinary.
Because that is something we would normally do.
Yeah, so a couple days went by, finally had time. I went to the store, picked up the ring. So finally, Friday night came. So we went to the Salt Flats Saturday morning. Friday night came, she drove up to where I was living.
And that's when I had the thought about the ring size.
And I kept asking her, I was like, oh, are you excited to go to the Salt Flats tomorrow morning? And she's like, no.
No,
not
I kept
really.
saying no. It's because we had to get up at 4 a.m. and I don't do mornings very well. It was going to be very cold. And then we had a busy day ahead after that, and so I just knew that it was going to be this busy day and I'd be really tired for it.
And I kept telling her, I think you're really going to enjoy it. Yeah, we went to bed, got up, drove out to the Salt Flats. Gentry slept most of the way. And again, I was trying to play it like, oh, I'm just there to take pictures.
I had no makeup on. I was in all my clothes.
Yeah, so we get out there maybe half an hour before sunrise. And she's just like, I'm going to stay in the car.
You figure out where you want to take pictures.
You get set up. And so I go out and I do take a few pictures. The stars were out and it was just before sunrise. And so I did take a few pictures. And so the sun starts to come up. Well, it's about sunrise. It was supposed to be partly cloudy, no wind. There's going to be water on the Salt Flats. And so I thought, this is perfect. You want partly cloudy because then you have the reflection of the sunrise on the clouds, which then reflects on the water. But it was just like a solid cloud bank on the horizon.
Yeah.
And so even though the sun was coming up, you couldn't see anything. You didn't get that beautiful sunrise glow.
It was still very beautiful.
It was, yeah. It was kind of windy when we got there, but then it got windier and windier. And so instead of having this perfectly glass-like, mirror-like reflection, it was just waves,
Not really.
So you didn't get that
ripples.
You didn't get that reflection. We didn't have the color, and so I thought, well, shoot. And of course, I thought about the previous weekend being in Flaming Gorge, and I was like, if I had just picked up the ring, that would have been way better than what it is now.
No, it was beautiful, but it was funny because normally on the Salt Flats, when there is water, it's like an inch or two.
Yeah, it's like an inch, and it's like 6 inches deep.
Yeah.
And so I'm
I'd worn waterproof, well, we'd both worn waterproof shoes, but they weren't tall.
No, they were just like, yeah, so it's like 6 inches deep. And so I'm telling her, like, you know, I'm trying to get her set up to get like the perfect picture, you know.
Well, it was funny because you're not the one to suggest taking pictures of us.
Yeah.
But you did. And so that was like the one clue I had to thinking something's off. Like, he doesn't normally suggest that.
I tried to be like, oh, we don't have very many pictures of us. Like, good pictures. Mostly it's just selfies. So I had her stand out in the water. So I get everything set up. You know, the camera's on the tripod. And I'm doing a video because I want to have a video of it, not just a picture. And so the videos are just like standing there looking super bored.
My boots are filling with water.
Yeah, because the water's so deep.
And it's soaking up my sweatpants, by the way. I mean sweatpants, a big puffy coat, sweaters underneath it, so it's like real puffy.
So I thought about telling her to dress nicely, but again, wanted to be a surprise. So I don't want to do anything that's going to clue her off, like maybe this is a special occasion. So neither of us are dressed that nicely. You know, we're just wearing tons of layers because it was cold, and she's just standing in the water, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna set up the timer, get ready. And of course I do the recording, and I had practiced what I was gonna say beforehand, so I knew, you know, what to say. And so I go out there, and you know, we're hugging, and so I start telling her, just explaining, you know, I've had a really fun time, you know, the last year or so that we've been dating, and wouldn't have it any other way. You know, I feel like when I met her, I met my best friend at the same time, and she keeps hugging me tighter and tighter and tighter.
Well, it was sweet.
And I have the ring in my pocket of my jacket, so I'm trying to like push her away a little bit so I can get my hand into my pocket. And you're freaking out because you're like, we're not freaking out. You're like, why are you fidgeting?
Yeah,
just stop fidgeting.
Yeah, in my mind it was just like, what? What's happening? Just hug me.
And I realized that I'd zipped up my pocket on my jacket because I didn't want, of course, the ring falling out, or I didn't want her seeing it. And I realized, like, oh no, I can't just reach into my pocket. I have to like hold my jacket so I can unzip it. And so I just kind of push her away.
Still no idea.
And then I unzip my pocket, and I get the ring out. And, you know, of course, I open it up and I kneel down.
In 6 inches of water.
Well, it had to be done, right? And, you know, I say the words, will you marry me? And she has her hands over her face.
It's because, I don't know why, but the second my brain caught up to what was happening, it shut off. Like, I couldn't process anything. I don't remember a lot in that moment. I remember up to that moment and I remember after, but all I remember really clearly in that moment is covering my face. I know I did that. And looking down, like moving my hands and looking down and seeing just like a tunnel vision of your face like beaming up at me. And that's all I could see. And I thought I said yes, but I didn't.
Well, so I kneel down and I had the ring open or the box open, and I say, will you marry me? And it's like 2 or 3 seconds, which doesn't sound like that long. I'm waiting, and she finally nods her head, and I can't remember if you said yes or not.
I thought I said yes. I swear I remember saying yes. My brain remembered function enough to say yes, but apparently it didn't. It nodded at least, so that's
yeah,
good.
She nodded. So I stood up, you know, closed the box, gave her a hug because I didn't want the ring falling out into the water. And then you said...
Oh, right. And then I said I feel sick.
So...
I forgot about that part.
So anyways...
It was so much. It just was so unexpected. He did such a good job of keeping it a secret that when it actually happened, my brain just couldn't handle it. And so it was so much emotion. My head was spinning and it was all a blur. And so in that moment, I really thought I was going to be sick.
I'm glad she wasn't. So anyway, so we hug. I take the ring out, put it on her finger.
Which looked horrible because it was so cold and purple.
So we get everything back in the car and we're driving back to Salt Lake. Now, the Salt Flats are about a 2-hour drive from Salt Lake. And
I had a baby shower to be to.
Yes. We stop at the gas station on the way out to fill up a little bit. I only need a little bit of gas. And the car, I notice, is driving kind of weird. And I'm like, this is weird. So we pull into the gas station, fill up, car won't start, battery's dead. So there's someone at the gas station, fortunately, who gave us a jump and tells us about this mechanic in town, so in Wendover. So we drive over to Wendover.
It's like 15 minutes, maybe 5.
get out, leave the car running. He tests the battery and says, oh yeah, your battery's kind of dead, but the alternator's fine. So you should keep it going to Salt Lake. And I was like, you'll make it fine. We did not.
We made it maybe 40 miles.
We made it 40 miles and the car was it died.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So
there's nothing.
So I call up the tow company. She keeps asking, well, do you have an address? Do you have a location? Where can we find you? I'm like, literally nowhere. There's nothing around.
There's no mile markers.
No.
No exits.
The nearest exit I think is 5 miles up the road, and so she keeps
and
asking,
it's like not a
well,
town.
what's the nearest exit you're near? And I'm like, I can't see the sign from here. I don't know. So we call her dad. Her dad very kindly buys a new battery, which I repaid him, and then drove out the hour and a half, 2 hours, put in the new battery.
We told him at that point.
Yeah, so he knew.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he knew before because you asked him.
Yeah. I found out he didn't even tell his wife, Gentri's mom, for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So he did a very good job keeping it a secret. So for a long time, it was like me and him were the only two that knew, really. Anyway, so I drove back home, change, shower, get ready. We had a movie night with friends later that night.
I drove right to the baby shower, and I made it for the last 15 minutes.
That's right.
And it was my sister's baby shower, so it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. We decided not to tell anyone. We didn't want to rain on her parade, and so she takes the ring off. And, so we had a movie night with friends later that night, and I drove back down to Gentry. Again, no problems with the car. Everything was running great. We get back in the car.
To go to the party.
To go to the movie night with friends.
Which we'd come up with.
Yeah, it was our idea. And the battery light on the dash comes in. We had just stopped at the grocery store to get some stuff. And so there was fortunately an auto parts store just down the road. So we drove there. The alternator's dead. And
now the battery too.
And now the battery.
The new battery.
So I had to buy a new alternator. Her dad and I, a couple days later, put it in the car, and
our friend came to get us and take us to the party, and then took us to get my car, which was still
so it was very nice
of her.
But it was, we were up. By the time we got back to bed, we had been up for like
almost 24 hours.
24 hours or something like that, and it was such a long day.
Way more than I expected. I knew it was going to be a long, crazy day, and that's why I kept saying I wasn't excited for it. But it was much more exciting than I thought it would be, and also longer.
Yep. So that is how we got engaged.
Yeah. And for the record, I love the ring. I think it's perfect and beautiful, and I wouldn't want anything else.
Well, I'm very glad about that. Now we're engaged, and the coronavirus is going on.
So hopefully we get to have our wedding.
Ever since we've been engaged, it's just been
like one thing after another.
Yeah. So we still have a few months before the date. So
really hope that things are back to normal so we can have the wedding we've been planning on. Originally I had wanted an elopement, but after actually getting engaged and just realizing the importance of having your family there, I decided that we should just do an actual small family garden wedding, and now we may not get that.
Maybe.
But hopefully we do, because we both have our clothes already and our honeymoon booked, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we got engaged.